On today's show, we'll dissect what the Leafs blue line looks like in the wake of the Mark Giordano injury. We'll give our top 5 Leafs performers through the first 20 games. And it's a game day, folks. Leafs and Kraken tonight. We will break down that matchup as well. All that more coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So if you're going down to the Leaf game tonight or you're looking to buy some tickets, perhaps consider using the GameTime app. Get yourself $20 off using the Locked On NHL coupon code. Busy show today, Dave, so we'll get right into it. We're going to tee up the game a little bit later on, but we've got some word here that Mark Giordano's injury that was sustained in the win, actually thought it was a loss but turned to be a win against the Florida Panthers, is going to keep him out a couple of games. It's still being evaluated to know what the exact timeline is, but he will not play tonight against Seattle. And then won't play against Boston either over the weekend. This really does leave this blue line in flux right now because, you've obviously, we know the situation with John Klingberg. He's not playing. You've got Timothy Liljegren still injured. He was someone who had played top 4 minutes for you at points this season. And then Mark Giordano, who was filling in, playing top 4 minutes with those guys, either not panning out or the injury in the case of John Klingberg. So now all of a sudden you look at this group and you look at this top 4 and you look at the blue line, and it's thin going into tonight's game.
Yeah, it doesn't look very great, and this was an issue. We kind of discussed this going into the season, how they didn't really have a lot of depth, right? Not a lot of teams obviously can afford to have as many of their top 4 guys come out. And the fact is they made Mark Giordano a fixture in the top 4 because they didn't really give themselves a lot of insulation in that area, right? We thought they needed to find a way to keep Giordano from playing too many games. Klingberg goes down and not playing well, forced Giordano to play a bigger role than expected. And now, yeah, the injury wasn't a result of him having, playing too much and being worn down. It was obviously off a block shot.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show that the Leafs the blue line wasn't addressed in the way it should have been. And now, they have to rely on players that they likely didn't expect to have to rely on, right? They're on their 7th, 8th guys right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're in a situation now where one of Simon Benoit, Lagesson, or Timmins will probably have to scoot up into the top 4. Do you have a preference as to which one you think might land in there? Like let's take a look on Daily Faceoff and look at what the blue line looks like right now. I mean, I guess there's a possibility that we could see the top line get broken up, the top pairing, and Riley and TJ Brody to try and, maybe parse some things out a little bit. But right now, essentially with Giordano not playing, one of those two guys, Benoit and Timmins, are going to have to move up into the top 4. Perhaps Will Lagesson, who is going to play. We know that. But is there someone who you think maybe has an edge to play up in the top 4 here? Does it even matter?
That's what I was going to say. It's almost like pick your poison. I think it probably will be Lagesson because, I don't know if you can do a Lagesson-Timmins bottom pairing, right? Unless they feel like Benoit because of his state, but even then, him and McKay both on the same pairing, I just don't know if that works, right? So I think Lagesson and McKay probably makes the most sense, but again, we're kind of, I don't know. I think I don't think we're gonna be getting, the best version of this blue line. with
No.
either of them there.
No, and I mean, luckily coming into tonight, like the Seattle Kraken are not a team that you are overly worried about when it comes to goal scoring and generating a lot of chances. They're not a very good offensive team, and we'll get into a little bit of that a little later on in the show when we break down this matchup. But I think when you're looking at this, and we don't know how long the Giordano injury is going to be. We know it's at least a couple games, but it could be longer. We know that. Timothy Liljegren has not, joined this team in a practice yet, so he's going to be a little ways longer. I think I heard on Overdrive from Darren Dreger that I think he hasn't even skated with the team. He hasn't skated with gear on yet. So it sounds like he's not too close to return. I mean, are we getting to a point here where there might be an urgency for Brad Treliving to finally make that move on on the back end? Sorry about that. Based off of necessity due to the injuries here.
The only one here that's going to be like a bit of a saving grace is, Liljegren hopefully will be back soon, and that having him back will hopefully help this situation out a little bit. Maybe have a McCabe Liljegren pairing. That could be a good pairing there.
Dude, I said, he hasn't skated in a while. Even if he does return in the next couple of weeks, like before Christmas, it's going to take him a little bit to get back up to speed based off of what the injury was.
Yeah, that's true. I do think regardless, I think a trade has to be made regardless, right? Whether it happens when you get Liljegren back, like we already knew that this blue line needs help. Really, it just also tells you how big of an impact the top four has faced when you look at how many guys like have gone down, right? We said likely Jake McCabe top four, but he's had revolving partners: Liljegren, Giordano, Klingberg. All those guys have gone hurt within the first couple months of the season. So I think a trade has kind of always said that a trade had to happen at some point. Whether that's to help boost the top pair and move one guy down, obviously Brody, that's an option too, or finding someone for the second pairing, whichever one you can fix. I just don't think Brad Treliving, now we're seeing a team like Vancouver get some cap space now to obviously make a move for the blue line. Competition is starting to ramp up. They got to figure out obviously the Klingberg situation long term. But
I think they know. Honestly, I think they know. Like, it's not public knowledge, but I'm pretty sure they're banking on that space to be available to them. It's much like the Muzzin situation a year ago. They never officially said anything, but I mean, word around the street was, hey, this guy's never going to play again. And I think maybe that's the situation for Klingberg at the very least this season, potentially with him. So I think that money's available. Like I don't think I don't think Klingberg is going to hold up a trade. I really don't think that's the case. They'll make this deal, and then they'll figure out Klingberg if he miraculously does, come back and feel better or whatever. They'll figure it out. They'll figure out a way to get him off of the books, anyways. So I'm not too worried about him and his status being a factor in a trade, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and then the other factor is, the teams that have guys available, how motivated are them to make a trade right now? Now we're hearing because Calgary's won a few games, do they reconsider their stance? I mean,
Zadorov wants out, right? Like that's why Zadorov was being like if you recall, his agent was like, "This guy wants out, come get him." Like basically put out a memo. I did see Rachel Dory had an interesting suggestion on Twitter earlier today. She might have talked about it on her Staff and Graph podcast too, but she brought up Ethan Bear, who's been out for the season. He's a free agent. He's been out with an injury, but somebody who's right shot, defensively dependable, has kind of kicked around the league for a little bit over the last couple of years, but seems to always have decent numbers. That would be like a no cost, essentially, acquisition. That's an interesting name to kind of keep tabs on as he works himself back from injury, who potentially could, be a player who they could make an addition and potentially, help this blue line or give you some depth at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone who brings NHL experience. Yeah, he's not going to solve all the problems, but he very well gives you that, again, a body that has played NHL minutes and can help and has pretty decent underlying numbers when you look at what he's done the last few years. So I can't remember what injury it was that was keeping him out. So it's a situation where, an opening, the teams have openings right now. You might as well take a look.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's another name that's kind of been thrown out there as well. All right, let's take a break. When we get back, we're 20 games into this season, Dave. I thought it'd be a good chance for us to kind of take a look at who's been performing to expectations so far. So we're taking a look at our top 5 Leaf performers relative to expectation through the first 20 games of the season. So we'll reveal our lists on the other side, and then we'll tee up tonight's game, Leafs versus Kraken. So we'll get into all that and more in just a moment. But before we get into it, I do want to tell you about one of today's show sponsors, and it's our good friends over at GameTime. You shouldn't have to worry about where you're buying your tickets to the next big event. GameTime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, GameTime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. GameTime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. They're obsessed with finding you ways to help save money on tickets. GameTime has deals on tickets right up until the start of the event, even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute deals. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, hockey, baseball, and more. With zone deals, you can pick the section. GameTime picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. And with the GameTime guarantee, it means that you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less money, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano, got Dave Morassutti with me. We are hosts here at Locked On Leafs. We are a daily Maple Leaf centric podcast. We got new pods going out each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So if you are enjoying the content and you're new to the program, thank you so much for giving us a shot. If you've enjoyed it, leave a like on this video, comment down below your thoughts on the state of the Leafs blue line, and also subscribe. That'd be greatly appreciated. Then you'll never miss a brand new episode when we drop them each and every weekday morning. All right, Dave, 20 games in the Maple Leafs, 11, 6, and 3. There's been some good spurts. There's been some bad spurts overall here. What to you maybe has been the biggest bright spot through the first 20 games of the season? Is there one thing in particular that you've been very pleased with?
You know what? Like, everyone will say William Nylander, yes, that's the easy one to say. But for me, it's that the new players let's say Bertuzzi and Domi. Let's just maybe.
Where are you going with this?
I would say Bertuzzi and Domi. I think the knee-jerk reaction was unnecessary at the start of the year for the two of them.
So for you, it's the turnaround that Bertuzzi and Domi have had.
Yeah, the turnaround, like, giving them time to get used to, their environment, right? Giving them a role, finding a role for them. I think the fact that they've done that, their turnaround, I think it's something that I've appreciated, because people were ready to lose their mind after of all like saying all the signings were bad. Well, not all the signings were bad.
Yep. Almost like when Sheldon Keefe lost his mind on Bertuzzi in that game against Florida. I don't think we talked about that on the show yesterday, but boy, did he give Bertuzzi an earful. But yeah, I would say that's a good call. A bright spot that maybe hasn't been talked about as much is definitely the turnaround that those two have had, performing better than they were early in the season. But obviously, yeah, I'll take the low hanging fruit here and talk about William Nylander, who's been one of the best players in the NHL. He's been on a little bit of a dry spell when it comes to scoring goals here of late, but it's really just been bad puck luck. Like, you go back to the game against Chicago, the guy had a goal in overtime. It hit literally all 3 posts. He hit a post and a crossbar in the win against Florida the other night. So he's been all over the place. Even still, the goals aren't going in, but he's still playing some good hockey and definitely has been the biggest bright spot. I guess the blue line could be considered the biggest concern so far. We talked about it a lot, obviously, and it still will continue to be. And also, the fact that we're 20 games in and neither goalie has really grabbed the net. Maybe the other slight concern here with Toronto. Would you agree?
Oh, 1,000%. It was already a concern. I thought maybe they could get by for a little bit, but they were going to need an upgrade. But I wasn't sold on this blue line being a complete product.
Are you concerned at all about Mitch Marner?
I'm iffy on that one still because I thought he rebounded nicely in the Florida game. I think we saw a better version of Mitch Marner. Yeah, he didn't, he didn't do much offensively, but you saw him more engaged. You didn't see the visible frustration. Like if you asked me this question after the Saturday game, I'd probably feel a little bit different.
It's funny, actually, just because you're bringing that up, the visible frustration, which is what we had seen from him in the past. So he completely butchered his shootout attempt. Like he toe picked and took a spill. I saw him laughing going back to the bench. I actually was happy to see that because, to your point, the last couple games have been going real south for him, and he's been hanging his head low. He's been smashing his stick on the ice. You could tell he just wasn't in a good spot mentally. To see him kind of laughing at himself for something like that, I guess, instead of being mad about it. Yeah, that was actually something that I did like to see. So maybe he is starting to turn things around a little bit, and he's now going to be a caged warrior for a couple of games here. I don't know if he comes out with the bubble in tonight's game. We'll see, but I am not concerned with Marner. The sample size of him being literally an all-star, all-pro right winger is large, so he'll turn it around. He will. I'm not overly concerned about that. All right, with that, Dave. We talked a little bit about, some guys who've been concerning, some guys who are performing above expectations. So why don't we give our list a top 5 least performers relative to expectation through the first 20 games of the season. So it's not that these are the best 5 players for the Maple Leafs, but it's relative to expectation. So almost like a grading scale, I guess is another way that you could look at it. So why don't you go ahead, give me your 5 guys, and then I'll give you my 5 after.
For me, Joseph Woll, I think,
All right, you're doing an order, correct?
Yeah, not from 1. I'm doing it from 5 to 1.
Okay.
Yeah, so Joseph Woll is 5 for me. The fact that he's had an equal number of starts as Ilya Samsonov and he's got better numbers. Did I expect that? I thought maybe they're going to be a little more equal than what's happened so far. So I think, he's gone above expectations for me in that regard. And I think he's now earned himself the leeway to have more starts the next few games. Hopefully Sheldon Keefe agrees with that. We don't even know if he's starting against the Kraken.
Yeah.
Would have been easy to just name that after that Florida game. That's just me. So I have Joseph Woll as number 5. Number 4, I have Morgan Rielly. Obviously expectations for him. People didn't have high expectations for him because they've always felt like they're not getting the most out of Rielly, or they feel like Rielly has more to give. But I think this is probably the best version we've seen of Morgan Rielly in a while, right? Like last year was just such a tough year for him that
playoffs aside, obviously.
Yeah, playoffs aside.
Right.
But without Morgan Rielly, I don't know where this Leafs team is, right? Like it's like he hasn't been he's not like the Norris caliber that we're seeing of Makar, Hughes, and all those guys. But he's been their most important blue liner, and it gives me nightmares thinking of what would happen to this Leafs blue line if Morgan Rielly were to get hurt. Knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but
yes,
it feels like that's the one that, that's but that to me, like that wasn't an expectation I had. Like I thought they were going to rely less on Morgan Riley or like try to even things out, but no, they've had to rely on him a lot more, especially with Klingberg not working out and him getting hurt and the power play. Riley's now back on power play 1 and things like that. So that's why I have Riley as 4. Number 3, Matthew Nyes. You have to temper expectations for rookies. He's still a rookie, even though he played some games last year, and he is second on the Leafs in 5-on-5 goals. Did not think that was like he is behind Austin. Austin Matthews has 7. He has 6. I think that's pretty good for a rookie. So I think that makes him deserving to be on the list. I think he's been a beast, and I think he's only going to get better. And that's what makes me actually excited to see what this year could do for him. Like Sheldon Keefe has always said, you have to be careful with a rookie and not throwing too much at him. But, I think he brings that what they need in that top 6. And I'm glad Sheldon Keefe realized that. And I'm glad Sheldon Keefe is giving him those top 6 opportunities because I think he deserves them. Number 2 for me, I kind of, flip-flopped a couple of guys, but I'm going to put John Tavares there because, going into the year, this is a guy who got a lot of his points on the power play, and he's performing well at 5-on-5. And that second line, yes, Nylander is driving a lot, but Tavares, I think, has also played a huge factor in that. He's doing well on the draws like he normally does. He's, I think, third. If I'm not mistaken, third in the team. We're tied for third in 5-on-5 points. So he's really enjoyed the Nylander boost there.
Mm-hmm.
I think, any thought of him maybe having a down year going on the decline, I think it's a little too early to suggest that, Yeah, he's right now putting up, point per game. I think, if the power play starts playing better, like the power play hasn't been playing well lately. If the power play improves, his numbers are only going to get better. So I think I've been really impressed, considering everything that was being said about John Tavares the last few years. I think he's played better than expectation. And then William Nylander. Did I think William Nylander was going to be the Leafs leader in points? Nope.
No,
not at all.
Probably not.
No, right? And there's no player on this team that has gone above expectation in a contract year where he is the number 1 topic of discussion each and every day. And it doesn't faze him one bit. And that's, I think, a special case with Nylander because there's not many players on, that we've seen on the Leafs the last few years that handle the pressure better than him.
Yeah. Yeah. No, man. I mean, he's been excellent. Obviously, he's been the Leafs' best player for sure, and there's no doubt he deserves to be, up at the top of the list. He's at the top of my list, and I'll get to that right now. But I'll start at 5, just like you did. I had John Tavares as my number 5. I had him there just because. There's always going to be high expectation on John Tavares. Obviously, he's making $11 million. He is the captain. But you know what? He's played really well. He's been off to a terrific start to the year. He's got 7 goals, 13 assists, 20 points in 20 games. He's a point-per-game player, and that's exactly what you want to see out of John Tavares. It's what you expect out of him, I suppose. So he's maybe one of the lone, players offensively who are performing to expectation, and that kind of bumps you up a little bit higher in this thing. But you look at the expected goal differential, he's been outstanding with that second line, really finding some wind here with him to Bertuzzi and Nylander. 59% expected goal differential when he's out there on the ice, and 61% in the faceoff circle as well is by and far the best on the Maple Leafs. So Tavares, although he's aging, he's now into his 30s. I thought that he's gotten off to a really good start to the season through the first 20 games. So had him in my top 5 at number 5. I've got Joseph Woll coming in at number 4. I mean, you talked about him, obviously, the way that he's kind of come in. Not sure what to expect in his first full season in the NHL. Like, we forget that he only had, 10 maybe starts in the NHL prior to this season. So this is really his rookie year as well. And hey, through 10 games so far. He's got a 7-5 record, but a 916 save percentage. 274 goals against, but the defense has been kind of poor. He's got an above goals saved above expected. So Joseph Woll to me has definitely been really, really solid and has performed better than I anticipated. I guess I could say. Number 3, Calle Jarnkrok. I've really liked Jarnkrok's game, and it's been for a few weeks now. Like, he's been one of the more consistent players for the team on both ends of the ice. Like, the way that him, Robertson, and Max Domi have really formed to be, a pretty good trio. I wasn't expecting it to happen, but the guy's got 5 goals, got 11 points so far on the season, plays a good two-way game, kills penalties. I think Jarnkrok has been one of the players who has, exceeded expectations so far for this Leafs team that's been kind of mid to start the season. So I had to put Calle Jarnkrok in my top 3 in terms of performing relative to expectation. Number 2, I had Morgan Rielly. I was surprised that you had him so low on your list, I'll be honest, because Rielly, there are expectations on him, obviously, but he's been fantastic. Like you said, without this guy, where's this group? Like, if he goes down to injury in that Florida game, we're looking at a top 4 of, Jake McCabe, TJ Brody, and then what? Like, instead, Rielly plays 30 minutes in that game. So, he's been excellent. He's got 16 points so far through 20 games this season, a +6, and he's getting it done on both sides of the ice. So I think Morgan Rielly, he's skating really, really well, and that's when he's at his best. He's jumping up into the rush when need be, and you saw what he could do defensively too. In a game against Florida, had that really nice back check to knock a puck off of Nick Cousins. So I think Morgan Rielly's been excellent. Clearly the Leafs' best defender, and has performed, I think above and beyond what I expected of him. And maybe I should have expected more because he had such a great playoff, but it was like, the 2 seasons prior, you've seen a dip in play. Was the playoffs an anomaly, or was that him getting healthy? I think now we're kind of seeing that was him getting healthy and playing at a more elite pace where he's expected to, and where he can dominate. And number 1, obviously, is William Nylander. I can't say more glowing things about him than we already have, but we're talking about a guy who's right up in the, for the longest time was up near the top in league scoring with 27 points through 20 games. He's gone on a little bit of a small dip here in the last 3, but he's been great. He's been incredible. He's been assertive when he has the puck. We've seen a little bit of improvement in his defensive game as well. And like I said, that second line of him, Tavares, and Bertuzzi have really, really given them some life in that top 6. And I know they got split up in the last game, but I still expect from Nylander to be a top performer here for the Maple Leafs. So he rounds out the list at number 1.
Yeah, and him and Austin Matthews will find a way to get some points on the board. I'm not too concerned about that.
And Austin Matthews didn't make either of our lists. Because, well, I mean,
he's expected to score a lot of goals, and he's scored a lot of goals. So
he's been mid. I mean, you take away the 2 hat tricks, right? You take away the 2 hat trick games that he has. Well, now all of a sudden it's 8 goals through 18 games, and it's just a little less. Or sorry, he's got 3 hat tricks, doesn't he? 1, 2. I believe he has 3 hat tricks on the season.
Wild,
and then he had another one like midway at the midway point or something. I'm pretty sure. So you take away those, and all of a sudden it's a much, much less impressive, season for Austin Matthews. I'm just trying to pull up the game logs now to try and see exactly what the goal situation has been. But he's gone like 7 games though to goal at 5-on-5.
Like, he does have 3, I believe. Yeah, because he had the one in the loss to
Buffalo.
Yes.
Yeah. So and since then, again, like it's been 8 games since then. He had 5 goals in those 2 games where he played Buffalo and then Tampa. Since then, just 1 goal in his last 8 games. 1 goal in his last 8 games. So yeah, he's definitely not performing up to expectation.
He's getting his chances. They're just not going in the net. I'll say that.
And again, a lot of it though has to do with the struggles of just those 2, right? Like Mitch Marner struggling is impacting, the goal scoring ability of Austin Matthews. Right, they're not getting that second and third opportunity in the offensive end like they've been getting the last couple of years. That's the big issue there. All right, we'll take a quick break. Let's come back. Let's tee up tonight's game, Leafs and Kraken. Before we get into all that, though, let me tell you guys about one of today's show sponsors. And today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. It's a game day. You've got the Seattle Kraken coming to town to take on the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Kraken 8-10-5 on the year, and they've come in losers of 3 of their last 4 games, with losses to Calgary, Vancouver, and their last loss coming to the Chicago Blackhawks. Their only win in their last 4 against the lowly San Jose Sharks that blew them out 7-1. What are you anticipating in this Leafs Kraken matchup tonight?
Well, this is a good opportunity for the Leafs to take advantage of a Kraken team that's not getting good goaltending right now.
Oh, it's been terrible. You want some
Like
stats?
Joey Decord is what he has an 895 save percentage, and Philip Grubauer has an 881 save percentage.
So this team, they have the 4th best expected goals average in the NHL, but their team save percentage right now is 881 and have a league worst 713 high danger save percentage. And yeah, it's not great. Like you said, this is a team that is 11th in expected goal differential, but minus 17 on the year.
Yeah, that's not great. I think
No.
like Grubauer has given up 6.3 more goals than expected. Decord has allowed 5 more goals than expected. So
There you go.
like again, this is a good opportunity for a Leafs offense that hasn't really been doing so hot, especially on the power play.
Yeah.
And the Kraken power play hasn't been that much better either. So,
No, but then the penalty kill too. Like I'm looking at the discrepancy here. The Kraken penalty kill right now, 25th in the NHL, just 75% kill rate. I mean, it's worse than Toronto's penalty kill. And a good time for Toronto's PK to get right. We spoke about it a little bit on yesterday's podcast, how we think they should start funneling the puck down low again and then work it, the puck back into the front of the net. That seems to be where their most of their success has come on the power play, especially earlier in the season. And I mean, if you're looking at the high danger save percentage of the Kraken, they can't save a puck that's within 10 feet of their net. Like it's just they're not having the goaltenders are having a difficulty tracking pucks there when there's a lot of high danger opportunities for the opposition. So Toronto's got to try and generate as much as possible. And I was taking a look at the numbers, Dave. Over the last 5 games, they have done that. They actually rank first in high danger chances, generating a lot of offense. And maybe, this is the night against goalies who are giving up a lot in that regard. They could see the puck luck kind of go their way. They're going to have to work hard at it because the Kraken, again, despite giving up a lot of goals, they don't give up a lot of chances. They're 5th in scoring chances allowed and 7th in high danger chances allowed. So you got to work to get there. But if they can do that, which Toronto has shown in the past, when they are playing up to their capabilities, that they are able to, work their way and break down a defense, that they can get in there. And in a spot like tonight should be an opportunity for them to convert, should they actually, get to those spots on the ice.
Yeah, and like I remember the last time these two teams played each other in Toronto, and I was not exactly happy with how that game ended. It's a good.
That the 5-1 loss.
Isn't it like 7-3? Like I
Mm.
think Jared McCann had like the game of his life against the Leafs.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. 5-1. Yeah, so they've played 4 times in their entire existence. So the Seattle Kraken, obviously there's 2 years into their, I guess now into their third year. So Toronto's a 5-1 win, a 6-4 win, and a 6-2 win. Their lone loss was 5-1. They lost
5-1.
to
Felt like a
Seattle.
7-3 loss.
Yeah, last January. Yeah. Well, let's see what type of game Jared McCann had. Did he go off? I do know he scored a goal. I do remember that happening. Yeah, he scored 1 goal. Had a goal and an assist. So 2-point outing for Jared McCann in that game.
Yeah, I just remember like Tolvanen was good in that one. McCann, done. Like all their best players were really good, and I think the Leafs' only goal was like a power play goal. So I like this is just one of those games where the Leafs on paper are better than the Kraken. They got to play like it.
Yep, absolutely. And look, it's unfortunate they have this propensity to play down to their opponents, but I'm hoping that they can carry the momentum of the win against Florida, where they kind of got a good bounce to go their way, and you saw them with some pushback. You saw them play with a bit of bite. Can they just parlay that and play a similar style, play the same way against this team? And I think you'll find success. So that's what the Leafs got to do. They got just similar game plan, similar mindset to when they played Florida, and I think they'll be fine. Again, the Kraken, the last 3 of their last 4 games have been losses to Calgary, Vancouver, and Chicago. So it doesn't take the best team in the NHL to beat this Kraken lineup, obviously, is what we're seeing. So hopefully Toronto can take advantage. All right. I think that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. Actually, one last thing. The game's going to be on TSN tonight. It'll be the Overdrive edition for the panel for the game. Sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, I think I know that obviously O-Dog's always on the panel. I think this
They
is
did
the
it
first.
They did it once last year. They did it
They
one
did?
time last year as
I
well.
couldn't remember if they did it before.
Yeah, they did it once last year, and I cannot confirm nor deny if Al's brother will make an appearance on the broadcast. Cannot confirm nor deny. But that'll do it for us here today on the show. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the podcast. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms, including up on YouTube, and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on X at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. Go ahead, leave a like and a comment down below if you enjoyed this video. Let us know your thoughts as to did we get it right? Did we get our top 5 performers correct? Let us know your top 5 performers relative to expectations down below here on YouTube in the comment section. We'll be curious to hear what your thoughts are on that. But we'll be back with another episode for y'all tomorrow. We'll recap the Leafs and Kraken game. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.